The Curse of Empire. My distaste for imperial projects and globe-spanning political programs are, predictably, par for the course as far as nationalist conservative types go. I strongly discourage imperial projects of any kind, and globe-spanning empires especially. My reasoning, of course, might appall the box standard progressive or centrist. For rather than focusing on the populations that are subjects of the empire, my critique is primarily an examination of the damage that empire does to the prosecuting or colonizing culture. How, it shall be asked, can I overlook the victims of empire? I can almost hear the histrionics starting up. How can you talk about the oppression that the white man laid upon the world and say the oppressors had it worse? I cannot say who, quote, had it worse, as we are talking of two different kinds of wounds. Wounds of war and famine, destruction and disease, versus, primarily, wounds of the spirit, irreparable harm to the national fabric, and the dissolution of peoples. Ultimately, I find that the state of being a colony has the advantage of being conducive to fortitude, to cultivation of nationhood and peoples, while the state of being an imperial people is that of a lasting slavery. The people of an empire are slaves in three primary ways. Firstly, the common citizenry are nearly constantly being called up and sent out to foreign lands for the sake of preserving some far-flung territory, putting down rebellions, or expanding the empire everywhere and always for the benefit of everyone but this said common man of the empire. For his service, he is paid a wage which hardly compensates him for his blood, sweat, homesickness, real sickness, missing limbs, haunted mind, and or death. Not only is he pressed or persuaded into such service, but when he is in the soldiery, which is a meritorious and honorable profession in a rightly ordered society, he is often compelled to commit crimes contrary to the moral law. Whether it be under the pretext of a civilizing of a backwards people, or spreading the theories of freedom and democracy which are in vogue in the imperial homeland, the conquering nation not only maims and kills the conquered, but maims and kills their own in combat, and, what is worse, blackens their souls with war crimes and condemns them to a more permanent death, were it not for the sacraments. Let us not speak only of the men themselves, but of the effect of their absence on the wider society. When the empire seeks to prosecute a war, not only will a great many young men perish wrongly, but they will leave behind a wake of orphans, widows, and bereaved family. For what purpose was all this done? In most cases, for the growth of power, wealth, and influence of the aristocracy, who abuse their people by calling them to such service. Secondly, the imperial homeland as a nation is made a slave to a number of interests beyond their realm, which will make an infinitely greater demand on the attention of the empire's leaders than the needs or desires of its citizens. It is a fact readily acknowledged that a typical emperor would readily abandon a handful of his countrymen if he might curry favor of a foreign kingmaker who could expand his power and influence. In the modern world's only empire, and here I speak of the decaying morass of Pax Americana, this principle is immediately demonstrated in the zealotry with which the United States guards its overseas commitments and defends its allies, even when their relationship is obviously parasitic and or their belligerence and bellicose rhetoric threatens to embroil the empire in fruitless wars. And thirdly, empire yokes the descendants of the homeland of the imperium with an unpayable debt, which is that of historical grievance. At such time when the empire is dissolved, which it inevitably will be, there will be left to the descendants of the original imperial stock a great burden. They will be blamed for the numerous faults of the imperium until there comes a time that such emotional and historical blackmail is no longer a valuable tool of political coercion. Our current understanding of such a politics of shame suggests that the nations subjugated by the empire are entitled to exact such a taxing influence as this indefinitely. Furthermore, As punishment for the crimes of their forefathers, the citizens of the former empire will be expected to bend the knee to foreign interests, be they organizations set up for the sole purpose of curtailing their national sovereignty, or multinational influencers seeking to use their status as a morally defeated nation to push all manner of depraved social agendas. They may likewise have their homelands inundated with their former subjects, who by their very existence within the prescribed domain and oftentimes justified hostility to the host culture will erase first the culture and institutions of the former imperium and then threaten the survival of the people themselves within their ancestral communities. These and other consequences await the nations that practice empire. It has happened in France. It has made Britain a sordid spectacle, and it will, no doubt, be the fate awaiting the American empire when it, like all empires, ceases to exist. Some will see the ruin that has befallen or will befall these nations as a form of retributive justice. Perhaps it is. Who can say? I cannot glimpse the mind of God to know how morally culpable the average Englishman is for any number of his country's former sins. I cannot say what form of flagellation is prescribed for a man to do penance for the sins of his fathers. All I can suggest is that the empire is a curse and a bill of sale for the nation that prosecutes the motto Vini Vidi Vici. For any upstart nation of the world looking for a system for relating to their fellow nations, I strongly recommend against imperial ambitions, not for the freedom and security of the world, for no empire will last forever, but for the continued freedom and security of your own countrymen, who ought to be one's highest priority.